Hey guys, it's A Child, aka Wolf in the Storm, coming at you with another Doctor Who video. I know the last one was a bit drawn out, but this time I only have two articles. And the second one was actually found quite by accident. Yeah, we're gonna keep it short this time. I know there's a couple of other YouTube sites or YouTube channels where they've already discussed the article. It just came out about the fact that production is still delayed right now on season 13. Like, they're doing the writing aspects of it, but they haven't actually gathered together cast and crew to physically start producing the episodes because of the coronavirus stuff. All we know for certain right now is that the Christmas special will go off as scheduled because it had already been filmed before all this happened, so they didn't have to worry about it. But as for season 13, a lot of networks and a lot of shows are starting to go back into production now that like lockdown rules have kind of lightened a little bit. I'm not from the UK, so I don't know what the rules are as far as lockdown rules in the UK compared to the United States, but I know that their standards are a little bit more, actually way more, much better than what we have. So the article basically was talking about the fact that they don't want to go into production on season 13 yet because they can't do it they cannot produce an episode to Doctor Who BBC standards due to coronavirus issues and the threat of further spread. Personally, I don't buy it because the spread of the coronavirus in Europe is on a much lower track right now than the United States because of political things that I don't want to get into on this channel. So I know they are in a much better position to go back to actively filming episodes of television shows than we are right now. And it would not take much action or work from them to put a plan in place compared to the crap that we're having to deal with here. So I feel like the BBC is just making excuses because they are not sure how the reception of the Christmas special is going to go, necessarily, when all things are considered with what happened with season 11 and 12 and how bad it's been received. So I think, honestly, what they're waiting to do is they're waiting for December to come around, for the Christmas special to be shown, and they want to see how that is received by the general public. I think once they figure out just how badly they fucked up, that will probably tell us whether or not it's going to be a 2021 release, or perhaps, because the way that it goes, even though it's only 10 episodes, if they don't put down a filming date pretty soon, like say sometime in the fall, September, October-ish, that is the least amount of time that you could wait. If they started in the fall, they could have a decent possibility of showing at least half of the filmed episodes after the Christmas special, maybe sometime in February or March at the latest. But if they are too late in filming, or if they decide to wait till after the Christmas special film airs, then the earliest that they could even potentially show a new season would be early in 2022. So yeah, it might just be that in 2021 there is no Doctor Who. So anyhow, yeah, so we have two articles here. I know that most of you are like, great, no Doctor Who all year. Praise Jesus, we don't have to worry about this bullshit. Yeah, I really do think the BBC is starting to, despite what the articles might say, I think they're starting to realize that things are definitely going downhill. I would not be at all shocked if this season for Jodie Whittaker is her last. Wouldn't surprise me at all. I know a lot of people are saying, oh my God, she can't last past season 12. They're going to kill her off because this is bullshit. But I think the BBC were hanging on to it with their claws for as hard as they could, hoping against hope that it would clear itself up, but it obviously hasn't. So I think it's just going to It's just going to continue to get worse because Chibnall has not expressed any interest in listening to the fans, to their concerns, to the critics' concerns. He generally doesn't give a shit. And the BBC seem to be behind him in whatever he wants to do to the show to kill it further. So, anyway, 2 articles I have. First one is from Screen Rant. And I know that if you've watched other YouTube channels like Doomcock or Nerdrotic or Heel vs. Babyface, you've probably seen this one. It's former Doctor Who showrunner changes regeneration rules. This article has to do with a follow-up episode to New Earth and Gridlock that was written by Russell T Davies. It was written as part of the lockdown rewatch that all Doctor Who fans have been doing the last couple months. New Earth, the double bill New Earth and Gridlock was the last 2 episodes that were of this lockdown rewatch. And as a gift to the fans, Russell decided to write this little couple-minute piece that kind of calls into question even further some of the regeneration rules. As a matter of fact, kind of fucks him over entirely. It was animated. David Tennant did come back to provide the voice of 10, and also Anna Hope, who we know played Cat Nurse Nobs Haim, also reprised her role. So yeah, he did this like 10 or so minute little coda to those 2 episodes. If you remember at the end of Gridlock, Nobis Haim was the one that was assigned as part of her punishment and redemption to watch over and care for the face of Bo as he was dying. And she was there with the Doctor and Martha when the face of Bo breathed his last and gave the Doctor his prophecy, "You are not alone." And we didn't see her after that, so we don't know necessarily what happened to her. But now in this article, or in this little follow-up piece, we see what has become of her. Former Doctor Who showrunner Russell T Davies has just changed the show's regeneration rules again, and this time it's an even bigger change than The Timeless Child. Current Doctor Who showrunner Chris Chibnall, Chibbies, had promised Doctor Who Season 12 would make drastic and lasting changes to the show's lore, and he was right. As the season finale revealed, the Doctor is no Time Lord at all. Yeah. You can go fuck yourself, Chib. Oh, let's not forget, he's not just a Time Lord. He's not just not a Time Lord. He's not even a fucking Gallifreyan anymore. Because he's not from fucking Gallifrey, folks. He's still got all of the anatomy of a Gallifreyan. 2 hearts, respiratory bypass, all of that jazz. But he's not a Gallifreyan. Get the fuck out. Now, honestly, I had thought of all of the showrunners and writers involved with Doctor Who that Russell would be the one person to not dip his toe into this garbage. But as I watched the animated feature and I read this article, I'm not quite sure if he was being entirely serious. I mean, some of it was well done, but the whole bit about the regeneration that he threw in there, I'm not sure if he was being, like, completely word for word serious, or if he was trying to put some deeper meaning into it. Alright, so 1 billion years ago, a Gallifreyan explorer named Turkayun Wamman, stunning and brave, discovered an abandoned child on a distant world, near a mysterious boundary to another universe or dimension. Or wherever, because they don't ever say, and we have no fucking clue. She adopted the young girl, but some time later, tragedy struck. She fell off the cliff! The child fell from a great height, a fall that should have killed her. Instead, she regenerated, the first regeneration on Gallifrey. Called the Timeless Child, this being became the base genetic code for the entire Time Lord race. Yeah, because she was killed over and over and over and abused constantly for almost her entire young adult life to give the Gallifreyans a way to regenerate. This is physically fucking impossible. She would have to be older than Rassilon himself. And Rassilon was long dead when the Doctor was born, loomed, however you want to say it. At least that's accepted Time Lord show canon. He was long dead by the time that the Doctor came around, and was only resurrected to help them fight the Time War. Just saying. Unlike the Time Lords, however, the Timeless Child has an unlimited number of regenerations. It's a massive retcon rewriting everything viewers knew about the Doctor's history and identity, and it was as much of a surprise for the Doctor as for longtime Doctor Who fans. The Doctor's memory had been erased, but the Master discovered the truth while raiding the Matrix and delighted in taunting the Doctor with this revelation. You know, it would have made so much more sense if it was the Master who was the Timeless Child, but then again, it still wouldn't have gone along with established show canon because they grew up together as friends. However, they were just friends, so the Doctor did not know much about the Master's younger past. It's entirely possible that, you know, if they had reversed this and made the Master the Timeless Child, it would have made so much more sense. So much more sense. And explained a lot of his personality traits and quirks. Now, former Doctor Who showrunner Russell T Davies has retconned the Doctor's regenerative powers once again in a new animated short featuring David Tennant as the 10th Doctor. The video stars Anna Hope reprising the role of Novice Haim, one of the cat nurses who appeared during the Tennant era, of course, in episodes New Earth and Gridlock. Novice Haim is dying of old age, expecting one last visit from the Doctor who she appears to have studied. I've heard so many stories about him over the years, his hundreds of faces and forms, she observes. The men and women and animals who have taken that name. And yet the one who comes for me is so familiar. This one is mine. Okay, the reason why I call this piece of dialogue into question is because she says, the men and women and animals who have taken that name. Taken that name. Those three words right there. Taken that name. That implies that they may not necessarily have actually been the Doctor, but somebody who was purporting to be him. Which is not necessarily beyond reason. Things like this in the show's history have happened before. Where somebody is so taken with him or so inspired by him that they try to mimic his acts and be him. I mean, hell, Clara herself at one point was trying to be the Doctor. So I feel like Russell wasn't really trying to run roughshod over the canon. I think he was kind of just like cheekily, you know, trolling just a little. And saying, okay, yeah, you want to go there with that? How about this curveball? But he's kind of giving you a little, she's trying to make it a little more deep than what Chibnall is doing. Chibnall just is like, that doesn't make any sense. What the fuck? Russell, he's always been able to write his stuff with a little more subtlety and depth to his words. You can read into a certain amount of subtext with this and see something very much different than just word for word what's on the page. It's very possible that what she means is that she's only seen the 10th Doctor, and she's heard legends far and wide of his different faces, but she doesn't know really what's become of him because she hasn't seen him in a very, very long time. She only knows the whispers and things that she's heard. So any of that stuff could be bullshit as far as anybody else knows. And the hundreds of faces and forms and, you know, that have taken his name, like I said, there's subtlety to that implies that it might be people committing acts in his name, committing great deeds in his name, or saying that the Doctor did this or helped to do this, but not necessarily saying that they're the Doctor. How in the fuck? Because I think even Russell knows there is no fucking way that a Time Lord can be an animal and still function. I'm sorry. If he regenerates into a dog, how the fuck is he going to fly the TARDIS with 4 fucking paws? Are you serious right now? Come on. Like, come on. You can't even properly communicate. I'm sorry, I don't think that the TARDIS is going to translate woof, woof, woof. Now, I know that there has it has been said that the doctor, Ten himself said after he first regenerated, he could have 2 heads or no head. But honestly, I think he was just being facetious and manic and joking around with it. And then there's also that throwaway line from Matt Smith, well, I could have regenerated 507 times. Yeah, I think we all know that's a joke. Come on now. Back in the day before Rassilon pulled his garbage and turned the Time Lords into what they are now, they were very concerned about the possibility of Time Lords having too much power. That's why the most important rule was to never interfere. Why do you think the second Doctor was punished the way that he was? For meddling and interfering. And they banished him to Earth. They forced him to regenerate, banished him to Earth, and took away his TARDIS so he couldn't do anything else. At that point in time, they were, as Headmaster Finch once said, peaceful to the point of indolence. Like, they didn't want to get involved. They didn't want to have godlike powers. Yes, they had the power of time and space at their fingertips, but they were very careful about it. So I cannot imagine in any shape or form that they would allow any being in their midst to have unlimited regenerations to the point where he or she could outlive the entire Time Lord race. I just, no. I don't buy it. It's ridiculous. I know that at some point, Rassilon, went fucker noodles and decided to do things his own way. But that's why the Doctor stopped him. Okay, Novice Haim's comment would make no sense before Doctor Who Season 12. After all, there have been previously well-established limits to a Time Lord's ability to regenerate. Those limits have now been stripped away from the Doctor, meaning she has an unlimited number of lives. Thus, when Haim says she knows of hundreds of different Doctors, there's no reason to assume she's wrong. In fact, it fits with an amusing gag from Davies' Sarah Jane Adventures, which is a kid-friendly Doctor Who spin-off. In that show, Matt Smith's Doctor claimed to have 507 regenerations, which I've already previously said is, and most of us know, was chalked up to be a joke. I'm pretty certain that episode that they're referring to came out even before what happened at the end of Season 7 when he went to Trenzlore and had to grow old for an extra 400 years because that was his last body. So, yeah. Before the Time Lords gave him an extra set. Honestly, sometimes you take a joke and just wind it up into ridiculousness. Novice Haim also suggests the Doctor can change her form as well as her face. She refers to men and women and animals. It appears the Doctor can actually change her species when she regenerates. This power is presumably not shared by the Time Lords, who have never been seen in exotic forms. Thus, Davis is implicitly suggesting the Doctor's regenerative ability outstrips the Time Lords in every possible way. Yeah, no, I don't believe that. You can regenerate to heal yourself, but you're never going to not be a Gallifreyan. You're never not going to be a Time Lord. That the regenerative ability is intrinsic to Time Lords. Period. There is no other race in the cosmos, in the known universe, or any other that has this ability. I do not care what bullshit that Chibnall's put on the fucking screen. And I think Davies knows it too. I'm fairly certain that this was more of a dig than anything real. It's safe to assume that there's still a limit to the Doctor's regenerative ability, though she most likely has to stick to a humanoid, warm-blooded species and will also retain those 2 hearts. That's what I'm saying. Animals are not fucking humanoids. You just contradicted yourself. You can't turn into a dog or a cat or a cold-blooded species like an alligator or crocodiles. You can't do that shit. I could see the most I would accept is maybe growing another appendage, like a set of wings or something. I read a fanfiction once where one of the Doctor in one of his regenerations had wings, like a fairy, but he was still humanoid looking. The wings was the only extra added thing that he had. and it was, and he was never able to live it down because they made it out to be they look like an idiot. So, but for the most part, everything else was still the same. I don't see. That's why this whole thing contradicts itself. If you can only change into humanoid forms, you can't change into fucking animals. The Chibnall era has expanded Doctor Who's mythology in unexpected ways. Chibnall has retconned the Doctor's regenerative abilities, and he's introduced Jodie Whittaker as the first female Doctor and Joe Martin as the first Black Doctor. Amusingly, though, Russell T Davies has just gone one step further, revealing the Doctor doesn't even have to look like a human. It almost feels like a competition to come up with the most regenerative retcon, and Chibnall's Doctor Who Season 13 may offer the next one. As if he hasn't retconned enough. Yeah, I don't think Russell sees it as a competition. I think Russell saw it as a trolling dig. Because that's how Russell is. I could never imagine Russell going along with any of this garbage. He's too good of a writer and cares far too much about the show to ever try to harm it in such a way. Yeah, I don't buy it. I'm fairly certain that Russell was trolling in his own subtle way. So, next article is, this is actually also from Screen Rant, and I found it quite by accident. It was actually a link that was featured within this last article that I just read to you guys. And when I saw it, I knew I was going to have to look at it because this is big. Doctor Who's Timeless Child Retcon rewrites the 20th anniversary special. Doctor Who's Timeless Child Retcon has subtly rewritten the 20th anniversary special, The Five Doctors, adding a new layer of irony to the plot. Now, those of you who have enough experience with Classic Who should know, even if you don't have a lot of experience with Classic Who, everybody knows the Five Doctors special. It is probably the biggest, most well-known and most well-loved special of the entire show. And it's an episode where you have the first, second, third, through some crafty editing, fourth and fifth Doctors all together in one episode, including their various companions. Obviously, they had to have another actor playing William Hartnell's role, because by that time he was already deceased. But they did some really crafty editing work, and they were able to make it work. The storyline was really good, and the Five Doctors worked amazingly well off of each other. The actors were great together, and it is to this day probably one of the most well-known storylines and most well-loved specials. To harm that in any way, because Chibnall is a douchebag, I think is probably the worst thing that he could have possibly done by calling everything that these actors did in this episode into question. Everything that was written in this episode. This 20th anniversary Five Doctors, was something that had been in the works for a long time. They had been working for quite a while to figure out a way to get all the actors together. It was going to be, it's not the first time that multiple Doctors have been on screen, but this is by far the biggest. And it was a huge endeavor. And it was kind of like a love letter to the fans for them to see all their past Doctors there. And it was very special. The storyline was really important to the continuity of the series. So with Chibnall fucking it up the way that he's done with Timeless Child, he's kind of spit on and taken a dump on everything that, past writers have worked so hard for. Okay. Doctor Who's Timeless Child Retcon actually rewrites the 20th anniversary special. Current Doctor Who showrunner Chibi promised season 12 would change everything, and he wasn't understating the case. The season 12 finale revealed the Doctor is not a Time Lord at all, but rather is the timeless child, a being who may well predate the universe itself. Yes, because apparently now the Doctor is Space Jesus. Space fucking Jesus. The retcon works surprisingly well with the elements of classic Doctor Who, particularly some Tom Baker stories and the plans of script editor Andrew Cartmel in the 1980s. When they're talking about Tom Baker stories, again, they're referencing the faces of Morbius bullshit that we've already discussed that are, for some reason, they want to take piece by piece and put it into the Timeless Child, which makes no sense. Again, those were not the faces of the Doctor. They were the faces of Morbius, period, end of statement. That's already been corroborated. Yet it causes a number of major continuity problems when it comes to the modern relaunch, clashing with stories from the Matt Smith and Peter Capaldi era. As a result, the fan base is rather divided about whether the Thomas Child is a good idea or not. It's not. It's probably best to reserve judgment and see what Chibnall builds on this foundation. I think we're already well aware of the fact that it's not a fucking good idea. Your show is crashing and burning. It's not a good idea. The Thomas Child retcon also subtly rewrites Doctor Who's 20th anniversary story, The Five Doctors. This was a multi-Doctor adventure uniting Richard Herndl's version of the First Doctor, Patrick Troughton's Second Doctor, John Pertwee's Third Doctor, and Peter Davison's Fifth Doctor. But production sleight of hand also allowed the show to incorporate Tom Baker's Fourth Doctor. The concept was a simple one. The Doctors, some of their key allies, and their oldest enemies had all been scooped out of time in order to participate in the so-called game of Salon. The man behind it all was Borusa, the Doctor's old teacher and Lord President of Gallifrey, who sought the prize of perpetual bodily regeneration, i.e., immortality. In the end, it turned out that this was all a trap set by Rassilon to identify any Time Lord psychopathic enough to believe they deserved eternal life. Ironic, isn't it, considering that it was Rassilon himself that was ready to tear the time vortex apart and ascend the Time Lords into beings of consciousness, therefore giving them immortality. But that's what happens when you go fucker noodles later on in life. So even at this point, Rassilon wasn't that far gone, and he was trying to prevent someone like Borusa from finding out the secret to immortality. So if they didn't want it at this point, why would they allow a being from another world to live on their planet and be perpetually immortal with regenerations out the ass? Because reasons? The Five Doctors is widely regarded as one of the best Doctor Who stories of all time. Although the script is steeped in fan service, it all serves a purpose, and the overarching narrative works perfectly. Curiously, though, the Thomas Child retcon adds another dimension to it. According to Doctor Who Season 12, the Thomas Child has an unlimited number of regenerations, and it became the base genetic code for the entire Time Lord race. These proto-Time Lords, presumably including Rassilon, believed immortality was too dangerous, and they artificially imposed a cap on the number of regenerations a Time Lord could go through. So, going off of what we learned in Thomas Child, they found this child, sucked out her ability, or his, to be immortal through regenerations, and then put a cap on it because nobody should ever have more than 12. Yeah. Not buying it. Not buying it. So viewed through the lens of the Thomas Child retcon, the entire game of Rassilon is a deliberate trick on Rassilon's part. He believed future Time Lords could still seek immortality. They could potentially unlock this either by studying the Thomas Child or editing their own genes. The legend of the game of Rassilon would distract any Time Lord who sought eternal life, leading them away from the Thomas Child and thus into Rassilon's trap. Here, of course, is the irony. When Barus decided to claim the prize of immortality, he chose the Doctor as his pawn. He had unwittingly singled out the Timeless Child himself, the one being who possessed the secret of unlimited regenerations. Had he but looked at the Doctor rather than at the game of Rassilon, then Barusa may well have achieved his goal. Seriously? Seriously? How would Barusa even know to look at the Doctor as the Timeless Child? They deliberately made a very in-your-face reference in the Thomas Child episode to the fact that the secret was so far buried, so deeply buried, that only the Master could ever find out what the truth was because of reasons. Because the plot says it must be so. And only once the planet was completely leveled from the ground. And everybody else was, all the Time Lords are dead, so they wouldn't be able to stop him anyway. If this secret is so far fucking buried, and has been for thousands and billions of years, because remember, if he's starting the entire Time Lord race, don't forget, the Time Lords have been around for billions of years. They are literally one of the oldest races in the known universe. Does that mean, are you trying to tell me now that the Doctor is billions of years old? Yeah, I don't buy it. Anyhow, Barusa would never have known this. I don't care if he was a Lord President. I doubt that they would. It's not like the Book of Secrets from the movie where it's passed down to each leader. Once that secret was buried, it was buried. I don't think that any succession of presidents, Lord Presidents, would have told whoever came next what the secret was, because it was too volatile a secret if it was even real in the fucking first place. So there really is no way that Barusa could have known that the Doctor was this timeless child. It's just ridiculous. This is the most well-known and well-loved Doctor Who special of all time. Just about. You had 5 very well-loved Doctors, their companions. The storyline was amazing. It set a precedent for everything that came after, of what the Doctor Who episode should be, what a Doctor Who special should be, and how well you could pull off bringing multiple Doctors from different eras together without a hitch if you did it right. Pulled off a precedent for great acting, great writing, and just a true love of the show and of everything that makes Doctor Who Doctor Who. I could see a lot of that love in the specials that Russell did during his years. And now Chibnall's just kind of taking a shit on it. Yeah. What does it matter what happened in the 5 Doctors? The canon is so fluid anyway, it can be anything you want it to be. Who the fuck gives a shit? Because it's Doctor Who. No, that's not how it works. I know that there can be a certain amount of wiggle room in sci-fi, because by nature it is science fiction. I get it. But because it is science fiction, there's also an immense responsibility on the part of the writers and producers to keep canon intact. You have to. It's the only way in the sci-fi genre that fans who watch the show will be able to understand or even have a fucking clue of what's going on. There is an extra added responsibility in sci-fi to make sure that canon makes sense and that is kept straight, because of how wibbly-wobbly sci-fi can be. If you want your show to last, and you want fans to keep coming back for more, and you want to be able to properly world build, canon is immeasurably important. So now he's saying, world building? What world building? We don't have worlds in Doctor Who. We don't need worlds. We can build whatever we want and then knock it down. Who the fuck cares? We can have this going on for 10 years, and when we get tired of it, snip, snip, snip. Doesn't matter. Throw it away. We can make it into something else. Dude, go fuck yourself. Seriously. You have just spit on one of the greatest Doctor Who specials that was ever put to screen. It's a slap in the face to the first 5 Doctors. It's a slap in the face to the show and everybody involved. And I hope you're proud of yourself. Okay, rant over. So, I've been thinking the last couple of days, probably about the better part of a week, of what I would envision as being a final season of The Doctor if the show crashes and burns, which it looks like it's doing. I said earlier that I don't really believe Jodie's going to last outside of another year, because generally the Doctors will go on for about 3 years. They do it in like 3-year slots. David had what I consider 4 years, because he had 3 years, season 2, 3, and 4, and his year of specials. So he's so far probably had the longest of all of them. Um, yeah. So I've kind of envisioned in my mind what a season 14 would look like with a new Doctor. I know Jodie's going to be in season 13, whatever. Hopefully, they will be smart enough to let her regenerate at the end of that season and get her the fuck out. Because I don't know how much more the show can take, and I would hate to see it crash and burn. But if she's anything like what the past article that I was talking about, how they were comparing her to Doctor Six, to the Sixth Doctor, if she's anything like that, then we have room for maybe good, one more good Doctor before the show needs to go. And I could see that Doctor maybe getting 2 seasons. So there's a lot of actors that could potentially play the Doctor. When I say actor, I mean male. I think we've already had to deal enough with what it's like to have a female Doctor at this point. So new showrunner, new actors. I don't know who the new showrunner would be. I don't know a lot of showrunners over in the UK. I would love to have Russell come back and do it. I don't think he would, though. Maybe if they give him enough dollar signs. Um, but the one actor that stands out in my mind is a great contender, and he's just in that right age range. He's in that sweet spot age range where he's a little bit older, but he doesn't look it, kind of like Peter was when he first started playing. And he's not gray either. Richard Armitage. I remember watching him in BBC's Robin Hood back in the early aughts, and he played the sheriff Nottingham. Of course, everybody knows Richard Armitage now from Lord of the Rings, from from that film. So he's got enough name cred. He's got the acting chops. He's got the look. I think he could pull it off really well. I don't know if he'd be going for a darker Doctor, but I think he would be a really good I want to say the perfect vision of the lonely god. Like, who's not really as dark as 12 was, not as manic as 13 was, but is just plain lonely. Just plain lonely. He's finally accepted that, the war is over, and while he'll never forget it, it doesn't cause him as much pain now than it did. He's not the man who regrets like 10. He's not the man who forgets like 11. He's not the man who constantly remembers to the point of self-flagellating pain like 9 and 12, or 13. I don't know what the hell she is because she never speaks of it anyway. I would say the Doctor who doesn't give a fuck. I think 14 would be the one who can remember, the Doctor who accepts. It's like the stages of grief, This version of the Doctor would be one that's finally able to accept what he cannot change, accept the fact that his people might be gone, but Gallifrey's still there. Because you don't know that all of the Gallifreyans are dead with that Siberian or whatever the fuck it was. You don't know that for certain. Like I said, in Doctor Who, there's wiggle room. So my theory is that, and this is going to be a plot thread that would extend all through those 2 seasons that he's there. When he regenerates from her, I don't know who the companions would be, but I would scale it down to 1. Just 1. Period. And it's going to have something to do with the Bad Wolf. I know what you're going to say. Why are you bringing Rose back into this? But it makes sense. I really thought about this. Remember how in season 4, there was these little tiny nods to Rose, and the doctor didn't notice them at all. She showed up at the end of the first episode of season 4. She was right in front of Donna, and Donna had no idea who she was at all because she didn't know what Rose looked like. Then she showed up on the screen in Poison Skies. She showed up on the screen in Midnight, but he never saw her. It was just flashes. And it didn't come to a head until Turn Left when Rose spent the entire episode with Donna in this alternate world that was created around her, which led directly into Stolen Earth and all that. Now, I'm not saying it would be exactly like that. You're not going to see her face because it's not about her. It's about the entity, Bad Wolf. I've always felt like season 1 started with the Bad Wolf. That was that plot thread. It was about Rose and Bad Wolf. Bad Wolf was this entity that was made of Rose and her love for the doctor to protect him and keep him safe because she wanted to be with him always. And she didn't want him to die. And remember that line she said, "I am the Bad Wolf, I create myself." I've always thought that line was a very important line. I know people think, well, it's just her creating herself in that moment, and then once he takes the advert, it's gone. But I don't really believe that, because almost every piece of fanfiction I've read that has to do with Rose after she parts ways with the doctor in season 2 has something to do with her having some semblance of the vortex still inside of her, whether it be an ability to live longer than normal or the fact that she can't die or she can't age. I firmly believe there is something of the vortex still left in her. I really do. I'm not necessarily saying that she's going to be immortal like Jack, but I think it's a distinct possibility that she might live a much longer lifespan. So that fear that the doctor has of having to watch her grow old and die and him not being able to do anything to stop it and it utterly destroying him might not come to pass. I think she did create herself, and it's laying dormant within her for a very long time. So he's going to go through the 2 seasons, and these tiny little references to Bad Wolf are going to pop up, but he's not going to notice them at first. Other people around him are going to notice him, but not know what they mean. Maybe a name on a door, tiny, maybe the sound of a howl, something that just kind of keeps pervading, like it did in season 1. Minor stuff. I mean, well, in season 1 it was a little more in your face, but this is going to be much more subtle. It's a plot thread that almost doesn't seem like a plot thread. And it's not even going to be in every episode, just tiny little things. And then once he gets towards the end of his second season, which would be season 15, I guess, of being the doctor, he's going to realize maybe the companion that was with him has had to leave for whatever reason. Maybe possibly because that person left of their own accord. Maybe they had no choice. Maybe they got hurt. Anything could really happen. Or maybe one thing that they haven't done with a companion, probably not since Susan, is they have not allowed a companion to stay outside of their own time frame. The companion always either goes back home or goes to a parallel, but still in their own time frame. Amy went to the past, but was still with Rory, technically. But they've never allowed a companion to stay. They've never allowed a companion to live on another world. So I feel like if a companion was to fall in love with someone on one of their adventures, either in the future, the far future, or on another planet, and then decide, well, I don't have anything to go back for, you would have to make sure whoever this companion was that they didn't really have home ties. Which would make sense. The doctor would definitely go for bringing someone on board who didn't have home ties, so he wouldn't have to worry about constantly bringing them back like he did before. And then they fall in love with this person deeply. And because the doctor cares about this person and wants this person to be happy, he says, okay, if you want to stay, it won't be easy for you because this is not your time, but, if this is where you want to be. And he lets this person go to be happy. And it kind of causes him to think, like, maybe the person that she or he is with is someone who is older and doesn't have as long to live, or maybe that person has a disease um, or a mental issue, or maybe that other person will live longer than the companion will, and the companion knows that their time with them is at a limit, but it doesn't matter to them. They still want to be with them because they love them that much. And that, love to them is more than an emotion. As Capaldi said in season 8, love is a promise to always be there, to be with that person no matter what. And when he sees this, it gets him to thinking about the one promise, the most important promise that he broke. He's always done his best to do right by his companions and make sure that they were happy. And he did manage to save them all. He fixed things with Martha. Donna will want for nothing, even though she won't ever remember him. She will never have to suffer. Amy and Rory might have been stuck in the past, but they were happy. River's song, he saved her, and you know what he did for Clara. So, and I know that, I don't know much about Bill, but because I didn't watch season 10, but I know wherever she is, she's supposedly happy off fussing around with that other girl. So, because Moffat can't kill anybody. So it gets him to thinking about all the different ways that his companions have kind of allowed themselves to love no matter what the circumstance. Amy and Rory were trapped in the past. They lost their entire family. They had nothing else left but each other. And yet they still made it work. Clara went so far to get Danny back, she almost lost herself. Bill Potts, I don't even know. I don't think she's human anymore now. I think she's some kind of robot or something or other. But she's futzing around in time with some other being. So, yeah, each one of them had made sacrifices to be with the one that they love because that promise was so much more important than any singular lifetime. And now that the doctor has been around as long as he's been around, and he's finally at a point in his life where he's been able to let the pain of the time warp go. He will never forget it. It will always be there. It will always be a part of him. But it's not this gaping maw that it used to be. He realizes that the reason why he kept putting up walls and pushing people away was because he didn't feel like he deserved that love or deserved that affection because of what he had to do during the time war, even though technically he didn't actually fucking do it. Thank you, Moffat. So he won't have noticed the Bad Wolf stuff in season 11, but in season 12 it starts to become a little more obvious. But he's denying it. Deny, because there's no way. It can't. No, she's in another universe. She's happy there. I'm not doing this. I'm not going to bother her. I mean, how could I even get there? The walls are closed. No. And I know what you all are saying. Yeah, the walls are closed. It's not possible. But because Moffat did that convenient retcon of the Time War thing and brought the Time Lords back, remember what Russell said, or what he scripted years ago, and what the 10th Doctor said. When my people were still alive, we could travel between, universe is no problem, easy peasy, hop back and forth, go to any universe we wanted, pop back in time for tea. Yeah, it used to be easy before, until the Time War and the Eye of Harmony was destroyed and the Time Lords were and the Time Lords burned. But now that that has been avoided, I know that the Time Lords are dead, but you don't need the Time Lords themselves for it to work. You just need the Eye of Harmony. And as long as that is still functioning, the Citadel might have burnt down, but I don't think that the Eye of Harmony would. It's a fucking black hole. As long as it's as long as it's there. So there's no saying that it's not possible now that Gallifrey is back. And if it is, that's probably the way that that Bad Wolf message would get through. But it's not Rose's doing. It's the part of her that is subconsciously seeking him out without realizing that she's doing it. The wolf longs to be reunited with the storm. The wolf mates for life and is longing to be mated with her mate. And I know what you're going to say now. Well, she's got the other doctor in the alternate universe. Yeah, but if the theory holds that she can outlive him because of the vortex. Okay, so after the companion leaves and he starts putting all the pieces together and realizing that he's been incredibly stupid because he's seeing that this human woman is making the sacrifice to be with whoever this person is on this other planet or in the far future, whatever. They have no idea what they're going to do. This is not their time frame. They don't know anything about the history of this time frame. This is totally new territory for this person, but they're willing to go on this adventure to start a whole new life because of the love they have for this person that they want to be with, regardless of the fact that this person's the time they have with this person is not infinite, that it's finite, that they might not have as much time with this person as they want to have. Like, maybe this person, like I said, had a disease, or maybe this person had a mental incapacity or a physical incapacity. Maybe the person was a little bit older, like if the companion is in their 20s or 30s, but the other person is like 60 or something, and they know that they're only going to have maybe another good 20 years with them, but it doesn't matter because their love is strong enough that that's what they want. Because love is not an emotion. Love is a promise. The promise to be with that person no matter what. So when all is said and done and he says goodbye to this companion and now he's alone. Well, before the companion leaves, when he asks this person, are you sure that you want to do this? I mean, you sure this is the right thing? Because you don't know this time frame. You're totally out of your element. This is not your home. It might not even be your home planet. I mean, how are you going to cope? It's not like you can just walk back to the TARDIS anytime that you want and just leave planet and then go back home. And once you're there, you're there. And that person would say, well, you know what? If that's how it's going to have to happen, then that's how it's going to have to be. But as long as we're together, it's okay. And he still can't seem to grasp that kind of sacrifice. And then the companion will ask him, haven't you ever loved someone so much that you would have been willing to do anything? That you would follow them anywhere? That you would give up anything to be with them? And light bulb will go off. Yeah, because when he was with Rose, he loves her still. He would have given up anything to get Rose back. But at the end of the day, because of 10-2, he didn't have much of any other choice. I mean, I know if it was up to Rose, she would have been like, fuck it, and she would have gone anyway. But he didn't really give her much of a choice. So after the companion leaves to be with the person that they want to be with, and he's alone again, he starts thinking about all the clues and putting everything together and everything that the companion has said and all the other ones that he's done right by, that's always left the one that he felt like he never, the one companion that he broke a promise to, because he left her without even saying goodbye. He didn't give her a choice. He manipulated her into choosing the other doctor because he thought that she would be happy. He didn't really give her her own choice. I feel like he would realize that he's never quite done right by her, and that promise that you give when you love a person, I felt like he would realize that he has broken that promise, and he wants to set it right. So he's going to put all the clues together, and he's going to figure out, oh my God, the wall's not like totally down where you could just pop back and forth in time for tea, but there's enough cracks that he can safely go through now without crashing and burning the ship like he did before. Slight cracks. Nothing that would cause the universes to bleed or collapse or anything, but small bridges that can be traversed. So he will put the calculations together and figure out a way to cross that bridge to Pete's world. And he's not going back there to get her back, because in his mind, she's with the other doctor. She's happy. He's not trying to interfere in her life in that way. All he wants to do is just check on her and make sure she's okay, and so he can know in his heart that he did the right thing. He can know for sure that she's happy and that she's moved on and she's okay. And that maybe, just maybe, he can tell her that he's sorry. Tell her goodbye the proper way, and, some other things. Not to confuse her or to piss her off, but just so she would know that it wasn't just the other that felt that way. That it was him too. So he gets there, and he goes to the mansion because he's assuming, well, she probably still lives there, right? But she doesn't. As a matter of fact, none of the family do. It's been sold. And at first he's thinking to himself, okay, maybe, they decided that they wanted something smaller. It's entirely, possible. Because the way that they were living their lives before, it wasn't the same as years ago. So, things can change. So he goes back to the TARDIS to do a check. And he realizes, he finally sees the date. And it's like 50 years in the future. Oh shit, he overshot big time. And now he's afraid, oh my God, I'm here, but she's probably like 80 years old and she might not even remember me. What the hell did I do? I might be too late. She might already be dead. So he's digging around, running around trying to find her, and he realizes by doing the research that Jackie and Pete are long dead. Tony's grown up, has a family of his own, wife, children, grandkids. He's now the primary shareholder of Vitex, but because he's in his old age right now, it's primarily run by a corporation rather than by a single person. And Rose is kind of not really in the limelight. It's hard to find things on her. She's kind of stepped away. He looks through the records to see if he can find her in Torchwood. But aside from some records of the first maybe decade or so that she was living there, it's very sketchy at best, and then she kind of drops off the face of the planet. So he at least has some information about her brother. If he can get to the brother, he can at least, find her. So, but he's not sure how he's going to approach this, because he never met Tony. And when he heard about Tony at the time, back in 2008, Tony was only like 3, maybe. So he might not even know who the doctor is. So he's taking a big chance. He finds Tony and introduces himself. And at first, Tony can't believe it because he doesn't look the same. But his sister, he'd grown up with Rose telling him stories of her adventures with the Doctor, the incredible alien who could change his face and ran around the universe and through space and time in a big blue box and did all kinds of crazy things. So he knows enough to know that this is him. And he sits down with him, and Tony relates to him this whole story that, Rose is still here. She's still very much alive. I say alive, but not necessarily living. A lot of time has passed. And I want you to know that she did have a good life. She married him. They were happy. More happy than you can even imagine. He became her whole world, and she was his. But then certain things happened. Certain events were set in motion that changed things. Apparently, maybe about 10 or so years later, which would account for Billy being a little bit older than she was back then. She aged to about her current age, which is somewhere in her 30s, and then she stopped. And she hasn't aged since. So she was afraid that Torchwood would try to use her, so she had to pull away from Torchwood to keep herself and the family safe, and also to keep the Doctor safe. So when they realized that whatever it was that happened to her with the vortex was still inside of her and was keeping her from aging, they don't know how much it changed her. They know that she can't have children, but they don't know if she's immortal or not. They just know that she either ages very slowly or has stopped at this point and maybe won't age at all. But that doesn't necessarily mean that she can't die. They haven't gone that far because no one, how else are you going to test it? Shoot her? So they don't really know how far it can go. But a lot of time has passed, and John is quite old. He's lived a lot longer than what one would expect because of his Time Lord brain, but even he is on his last legs at this point. And she has taken to caring for him herself. She doesn't trust anybody else to do it because she can't trust doctors to not find out about what he is and exploit it. So she has pretty much dedicated her life to taking, once he got older, to taking care of him. And she hasn't really been living. First, she protected him when she knew him when she was young. And now she's been protecting him the whole time since she's been there. And also her, taking care of her family. And she's not really been happy. She's not really been living. She's just existing. So he asks Tony to tell him where Rose is. And at first Tony's a little hesitant because it's been a long, long time, and he thinks the last thing that Rose needs is for this to come crashing into her life right now. But he also knows this might be the one chance that she has to find some happiness. Because if she can be with him, even if their lifetimes don't match up, she can live again. So he tells her where Rose lives, and he does go to see her. And as soon as she hears the sound of those engines, she knows immediately that it's him. But she's not sure if she wants to see him because it has been a long time, and she's kind of moved on with her life. Her whole focus is taking care of John, So they see each other for the first time in a long time. He's not pinstripes anymore. But she would recognize him anywhere. It doesn't matter. Those eyes never lie. And that feeling she had That first time she saw her first doctor with the big ears and the daft face, it's never left her. It's still there, just like it was all those years ago. But she won't leave John. That's her husband, and she made a promise to him no matter what. Now, he's still got it in the back of his mind that he's not taking her with him. He's just there to make sure she's okay, to see her, say goodbye. But in watching her with John and seeing how much of a sacrifice she has made to keep her promise to him that she would never, ever leave him, even though their age difference is so disparate at this point, because she still looks like she's in her mid to late 30s, and John at this point is like 90 something, maybe even older. Yeah, probably would be. So, yeah, a good 70 something years has passed, and she's had to live a very secluded life because, you know, it can only take so long before somebody notices that you're not aging. So it's been difficult for her. It's hard for her to keep relationships with other people. It's hard for her to make friends because it's how can you be honest with someone and tell them about who you are when the whole story is so fantastical to make any sense? And that and the fact that she's too afraid to tell people the truth because she's trying to protect the doctor. You know, they've had some experiences with Torchwood that have been less than positive, you know. So while she's taking care of him, he has a private conversation. He and John have a private chat. And John says to him, "Look, I know why you've come back. And it's I always I always knew that one day you would return for 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 her. She made a promise to you, to us. She kept it. You didn't. But I know you because I am you. I knew one day you would figure that out. You would come to a point in your life where you were ready to keep it. So I made a decision once we realized that she wasn't aging anymore, but I was. That when the time came, when it was time for me to let go, which is at this point sooner rather than later, I want you to take her with you. She won't leave me, not till I take my last breath. But when I am gone and you scatter my ashes, don't let her fall apart. We had a good life. We were happy. It was the best. And she will never forget it because that belongs to us. That's something you'll never have. That was ours, hers and mine. You don't get to have that. You don't get to share that. That belongs to her and me. I'll live in her for as long as she breathes. I can be content knowing that. But I can't be content watching her suffer. Because after I die, Tony doesn't need her anymore. He's got his own life and his own family who she's really not that close to in the first place. Not because she doesn't want to be, but because she does it to protect them. She won't have anybody else. She's just going to drift and fade away like you did years and years ago. I don't want her to become that broken and bitter person that we used to be. She saved us. She kept the promise. It's time for you to keep yours. Save her. Give her now what you wouldn't give her then. So that's a private conversation between them, and John pretty much telling him that he has his blessing, take her with you, make her happy, love her the way that she desperately wanted you to. Keep your promise. Keep her promise. For once in your life, do right by her. Because the wolf won't be silenced anymore. She runs and she hunts, looking for her mate. She'll never be happy without you. She needs you as much as you need her. You've always known that. So later on, Rose will come back in and sit with him, and then he'll tell her that, it's okay to move on after I'm gone. He's here now. Don't run away. Don't run from this second, third chance. And John will pass away, and then after the funeral, you know, Tony will tell Rose that it's okay. She doesn't need to stay here just because of him. He's plenty old enough that he can take care of things. This is her time now. She's given up everything to take care of everybody else since she was 19 years old. Her mother, she's taken care of her mother, the doctor, twice over. Her father, Tony, Torchwood. She's always done everything for everybody else. Now it's time to let the doctor take care of her. She's initially hesitant at first because she doesn't know who this new doctor is, He's not pinstripes and sand shoes, as Eleven likes to say. She doesn't know necessarily what his personality's like or how different he is to the doctor she knew. And she's still hurting. Her husband's dead, But she knows in her heart that no matter what face he wears, she's going to love him because he's the other half of her, period. So at the end, it would be, he's there with the TARDIS and he's ready to leave, but he's giving her this one chance, look, I don't want to leave you here, but I'm damn sure going to make good on my promise. I screwed up last time. I manipulated you and I hurt you and I didn't say goodbye. I walked away because I thought that was what was best. And it, for the most part, destroyed me. I don't want to do that again. Even if you want to stay on this planet, at least I'll know you're okay. But I don't think you are. I remember what you used to be like when you were happy. And smile. I want to give it to you again. So, you do remember it also travels in time, right? Look, I know what I said before. And she's going to be like, but you were the one that said it could never work. Because you couldn't stand the idea of watching me wither and die. Remember? Yeah, I know. But the years have gone by and I've seen so many companions I've had made so many sacrifices, and not even think twice about it. The companion that I had last went and stayed on an alien planet to be with the person that they loved, even though that person's lifetime was finite. And they would lose them at some point. But it didn't matter. They gave up their whole world. Even though they would only have a set amount of good years with that person before they lost them. Doesn't that not make me the biggest damn coward in the universe? A human ready to make this sacrifice that I can't make myself. Maybe I just wasn't ready then. Maybe I didn't think I deserved it. I don't think I did. I was in too much pain then, and was too angry and too bitter, too self-loathing. I didn't want my darkness to touch you and change you, make you like me. I also didn't want to experience that loss because I didn't think I could go through it again after what happened with my people. But now I know. Even if you never live as long as me, even if I only have another 100 years with you, it doesn't matter because we'll be together, and that's the only thing that matters. I might lose you in the end, but it's okay because at least for that 100 years, we'll be together and we'll be happy. I broke a promise once. I'm not going to do it again. So he's going to give her this chance to come back for however long she wants. And just to give her that extra added incentive. And one more thing. I was an idiot. He was never the bad guy. I said that because I was trying to take it all off of me. He was the one that gave you what I never could. He was much more braver than I ever was. Because he really did need saying. God, did it need saying. And then he would tell her. Or maybe not tell her, but kiss her. So she would know, finally, that he felt the same way, no matter what face. And he would open the TARDIS doors just like 9 did. Wiggle his fingers for her hand, which still fits perfectly in his. You ready? And she would give him that tongue-touch smile, reserved only for him. And they would enter the TARDIS together. She would say, "Of course I am." The Doctor and Rose Tyler in the TARDIS. Just as it should be. And the doors would close, and the ship would take off. And that would be that. And it would work as an open-ended ending because it's very much like what happened at the end of season 7. I'm talking series 7 back in the 80s with the 7th Doctor and Ace when they walked off into the sunset, and that's the last that you saw of them. And then the show was off the air for, was it 1989? For 16, 17 years. Yeah. I know it sounds a bit overly fluffy, but I really do think it's a great plot line and it could work. It accounts for Billy's age difference now that she's gotten older. And David easily could return in flashbacks as the age he is right now, and it would work because the human doctor can age, and they could also put age makeup on him to make him look older when he's dying. It's completely workable. I thought of all of the angles, so it's workable. But I really do think that in that last incarnation that we would see of him, that he would go back to the beginning. You know, that he would finally have it within himself to honor that promise that he never quite lived up to. I always thought that the reason why he couldn't was because he didn't, as Julie Garner was so fond of saying, that the doctor must be in pain always. But does he? Does he really have to be in pain? Because, like, it might have been at that point because of the Time War, but so much has changed now. He's changed. So I think he would have reached a point in his life where he finally begins to realize that it's okay for him to move on. It's okay for him. He doesn't have to feel guilty about wanting to be happy, about wanting to have love in his life. He doesn't have to feel guilty about surviving. He can actually, for once, live instead of just, ironically enough, for a Time Lord, kill time. All right, so that's my little plot thread. I don't know what you guys think of it, but if you want to comment on it or think you have any other ideas of how this might work, go ahead and post in the comments. I don't know when I'm going to do video next. There's not a lot of articles on Doctor Who right at the moment, so because everything, you know, has been delayed and shit. So I guess we'll see what happens when it comes. Help me keep on keeping on, bringing you this material. Check out my websites. The links are in the description. Patreon, Twitter, Instagram. Yeah, so I will see you guys when I see you. Peace out, y'all.
Good night.